Now let's get the show on the road. Nigeria ranked 6th in the 2025 Global Terrorism Index with an increased score, having recorded 565 terrorism-related deaths in 2024, a 30% rise from 2023. Green figures. The latest report, though, released on March the 5th, 2025, last week, ranked Burkina Faso as the most impacted country with a score of 8,581. I beg your pardon, 8.581, followed by Pakistan 8.375, Syria 8.006, Mali 7.9, Niger 7.7, and this placed them second. To look at this with us this morning, and I'm talking about keeping Nigeria safe, I'd like to welcome a security and intelligence expert, Dr. Felix Olorundamilola, who is with us in our studio in Lagos. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning. Wow.
And joining us via Zoom from Abuja is Professor of International Law and Global Security, Professor Ademola Abbas. Good morning, Prof.
Thanks for having me.
How are you? Thanks for joining us.
Very well, thank you.
Let me begin with you, Doctor. How well do you think we're doing in the fight against insurgency, against kidnapping, against, and the list goes on and on? Are we improving as the years have gone by?
Yes, we seem to be improving, but we seem to be improving when we have the new government coming in and there's a change in the security architecture. And there's a new energy coming to the table. But with this ranking, it shows that more work needs to be done for us to continue to build on what we have immediately after the change of leadership of the country in 2023.
Prof, do you agree with him? Professor, do you agree?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yes, do you agree?
Well, it's a very important question. But on the whole, I think there has been a lot of improvement in terms of combating terrorism in Nigeria and trying to keep Nigerians safe. And if you look at the report, I'm sure we'll come back to that in a minute. I think it does speak to that to a large extent. Having said that, of course, there is a lot of improvement to be made, a lot of room for such improvement, and there are many things we still need to get right that we haven't got right yet. So to that extent, I would say, well, we can be cautiously optimistic for now that we seem to be on the right path. The government is injecting more and more resources into the fight against terrorism, and also, but there are many dynamics going on in the region globally as well as on the whole that will indicate that there is need for us to be able to probably look into some other directions that we haven't been looking at so far. But on the whole, I think we're making some baby steps of remarkable improvement.
But it would seem like the military is not in cahoot with you, gentlemen, because the Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Kangie, had said that that the Nigerian military will provide more accurate information or account of the country's counterterrorism efforts than external sources. Let me quote something. Let me read out something that he's quoted to have said. That, look, something is happening in my house. I'm the head of the house. I have children. I have a wife, and someone else is reporting what is happening in my house to me. Which one would be more correct? The one that I tell you as the head of the house, or the one that is reported from outside? What's your take on that? What's your perspective on that, Prof?
Well, thanks, Ayo. I think you're the one speaking. Look, Let me take you on the whole analogy about the head of the house. I think there's something that is fundamentally wrong with Nigerian institutions when it comes to criticisms or observations about how they perform. I'll come back to the facts in a minute. But let me take you on the issue of the head of the house. Yes, in a very banal analysis, I could say as the head of the house, if anything happens to my children, I will know. But if I have been known to be a pathological liar myself, I've been known to bend the truth. I've been known as somebody who doesn't like to confront reality. I've been known like somebody who doesn't like to always wash my dirty linen in the public for anybody to see. Who is going to rely on me when I give account of my house, of what is going on in my children's life? One. Sure. Two, if I am personally walked in my mind and I see things fundamentally different from what reality presents me, then somebody is going to be at jeopardy if they take my word for it. That is to talk about the whole family analogy nonsense.
Yes.
You've got to look at something here. There is this kind of ninja reaction that our military seems to always, lap into. Let's talk about this particular, because I know that is where your distinction came from. Is the evaluation, so to say, the response of Nigerian military to the ranking by the Global Terrorism Index. They ranked Nigeria 6, right? Last year, 2023, Nigeria 2023 ranking, which came out 2024, Nigeria was 8. Now, when you look at this same report, it shows that on the whole, even though Nigeria is 6th position with 7.658 ranking, it shows that attacks in Nigeria have decreased generally by 37% from 2004. And that death has increased by 6%. But which is from last year till 565 today. But what is important, Ayo Analysts, is that even though death has increased to 565, 62% of those deaths were not caused by terrorists or civilians. They were deaths caused by intra-fighting of terrorists between Boko Haram and ISIL. And that result brought it out that the deaths that have increased is not the result of terrorists attacking civilians in Nigeria, no. It's the result of intra-fighting between ISIL and Boko Haram. That actually shows that it means that the military has been functioning very well to depreciate the capacity of terrorists to go after the civilian populace. Are you following me? Which means the report actually complements our military to that extent. Because if the report says, as it's saying, that look, generally speaking, attacks in Nigeria have increased in the same year we are looking at 2024, although deaths have increased. However, the deaths that have increased are not deaths to civilians. However, deaths to civilians have decreased itself from 38% in 2023 to 15% today, which means can be attributed to the fact that the Nigerian military has been doing a good job at decreasing the capacity of the terrorists to go after civilians. That is complimentary. But I am sure that the Nigerian military never read that report itself before they came out with their own whole ninja reaction and said, oh, you are the head of the family and this and that. Let me just finalize this. If you look at that page 34 of that particular report, it made it clear. It said globally deaths from terrorism have declined by almost a third since 2015 when it peaked, with Nigeria and Iraq recording the largest decrease. Now, the report said that in page 24. What more compliment can that report pay to Nigeria and the military? Because at the end of we are saying from 2015 to now, globally, Nigeria and Iraq have been the two that have decreased terrorism death by far than anybody else. I am confident that the military never read this thing. They just took the 6th ranking and they went on, we have to look into what, we have to stop this nonsense. It's really sickening.
Okay. Doctor, referring to that same analogy, which Ayo made, and from what Professor has said about it, that when the head of the house keeps telling you lies about what is happening in his family, how can you continue to trust what he says to you? Also, factor in the suggestions that we have heard that some of the top brass in the military are colluding. They are involved in some of these things that are happening, especially in the places where Boko Haram is very active. When we hear things like that, we're not likely to take everything that they tell us, hook, line, and sinker, are we?
Yes, I serve in the military myself. So I know, so I can say some of the things. But, those allegations have not been proven. Because you know that some of the...
No, I use, not the word I use, suggestions.
Suggestion, okay.
Yes.
So, because these terrorists, they are actually going after soldiers. They are going after ambush and killing our soldiers. And I don't think any commander will want to have that. So, I know that our military are doing their best possible, and that this insurgency is so very difficult to fight. Because it's not a conventional war.
No.
So it's difficult for our military. Some of us are not. Some of them are not even trained, because until we have this on our hands is when they start getting the training and the knowledge on how to combat this terrorism. It was not something that was part of our training in our military academies before. So it's something that they have to go.
It's new.
It's new.
Yes.
So, and they are doing their best to keep the country safe. So, and terrorism, insurgency is not about military fighting alone. It's supposed to be a whole people approach.
Well, you know, there is something that the Prof said about distrust.
Yes.
You know, you may want to speak to that as well, Doctor, because Nigerians have no other option. What we have is all we have.
Yes.
We only have our security personnel, we only have our security apparatus, we only have the military. The military we have is the only one we have. Yes. The police we have is the only one we have. At the end of the day, distrust or no distrust, they are the only ones that we fall back to.
Yes.
But we want to be able to build more trust so that whenever we hear anything from any of our security apparatus, we can trust them. At the end of the day, they themselves are Nigerians.
Yes.
And they want the best for their country. So how do we rebuild this trust? Because it has to start from saying and doing, doesn't it?
Well, I think, like I said before, that is a whole people's approach. So it's not just the military. I think the civil society, the media has to help build that trust in our military. You know, we know the numbers.
But we can only, my apologies, we can only report what we hear. For instance, part of what General Kange said was that the members of the media who attend the regular meetings of the military should be the one to stand and correct what we are being given.
Yes.
We hear that.
Yes.
But then it's an international organization. When it sounds good, we take it. But when it doesn't sound good, we reject it. Isn't it supposed to be some kind of...
No, it's not supposed to be so, because I want to align with what the professor said, that they actually not read the report. Maybe what they saw was that the ranking, and they reacted to it. Because I read the report, and I know that most of those deaths in Nigeria are caused by intra-fighting between the various terrorist groups operating in Nigeria. So it's not about the terrorist group and civilians in Nigeria. So that was why the ranking is the way it is. But is it the media, the civil society that will help build the trust in our military? Because the military are busy everywhere. And you know that we have a limited number of these men in our military. We can't have military that we patrol or secure all the villages or the communities in Nigeria. It's not possible. We don't have the numbers. So, but if we have where there are issues in communities where we have vigilante, amotekons and all of that, those are the people that can support our military. So that when we have those ones in community, in villages, then the military will now come in when those ones cannot cope.
You know, one of the challenges that I've always processed in my head is whether or not we're even giving enough attention to our military, to the officers on the fields. If they are going to keep us safe, the people who are going to keep us safe have to be safe.
Yes.
Do you feel they themselves they feel safe?
I think to the extent.
I'm asking because I mean you said you have been,
yes, I have been in
the military. So do you think that the way we are currently positioned,
yes,
the Nigerian soldiers and the rest of them, do you think they feel safe enough to the point that they can make us feel safe?
I think to some extent they are, because I know that, and I'm speaking because of my colleagues who are still there, and they think they are being encouraged, they are being motivated more than ever before, and the equipments are being procured for them to, even though there's also that room for improvement. Yes, but it's not what it used to be. So there's improvement.
Okay. Professor, speaking about the safety of the soldiers themselves and so on, how can we improve intel gathering, which I think is very important in this thing we're talking about? We hear that sometimes these terrorists go into villages and they are there and they operate for sometimes 2-3 hours, even though there are soldiers in the neighborhood. They don't show up till after the terrorists have finished operating and have gone, because no news gets to them that anything is happening and that their help is needed.
Well, thank you very much, Alero. Look, everything comes down to truth deficit of the civilian populace in our institutions, the military, the police, general, armed forces in general. And you can't really blame the civilian. It is also always easy for us to say, let's call on the civil society to help the military, to build trust in the military. Look, you go to the police station, you see an aphorism, police is your friend. You see that it's a banter they throw on a daily basis. But do you feel that police is your friend in Nigeria, to be honest with you? No. You feel that if police is out to get you, to attack you at the slightest opportunity. Just 2 days or 3 days ago, we woke up to read that a military contingent assaulted or invaded, I think it was Ikeja Disco office or Ikeja Disco or something like that, in Lagos, and that they manhandled, they rough-handled civilians, they did so many things in this and that. You begin to wonder, are we in a banana republic? That is the Nigerian Armed Forces members. We're talking about military. When we were growing up, when we saw people in khakis, in green khakis, we adored them. We admired them. We wanted to be like them. Many young boys wanted to be in the military because in those days, they symbolized, they personalized, they personified, discipline, integrity, or, respect. And they treated civilians with decorum. But today, you see military soldiers behaving like hooligans, because you have to be a hooligan to take your gun and go and invade a civilian, enterprise. Because of what? Because light was cut from your barracks. Is that the best result? Is that best? Now, how can I then, as a civilian who has gone through that, begin to help you build trust in yourself? Because you yourself don't even appreciate who you are as a military man. You don't appreciate who you are as a soldier. You desecrated yourself before me. You've turned yourself into nothing before me. You've demystified yourself. So how can I begin to help you to gather intelligence? From who? You are not my friend. I don't see you as my friend. You see military coming out with their guns and threatening people with guns. We've lived in other clans before. So we have to go back to the question of trust. One. Then number two, in terms of making military themselves safe, look, nobody is saying by any stretch of imagination, fighting terrorists is one of the easiest jobs you can do, even when you are a fine soldier. No, we know it's a very tough terrain. But then the government keeps saying they are pouring billions and billions into the military to buy equipment, to buy fighters, to do and data. Let's stop hearing about how much you are pouring and start hearing about how those monies, so to say, are beginning to change the narrative for the military. We want our soldiers to feel protected. No question about that. Give them the right equipment. Give them the right equipment they want, the right resources they want, but let them make judicious use of it. I remember when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came to power and people were asking whether he was going to probe the billions and billions that they said they gave to the previous leadership. And he said he was not going to probe them. I mean, I was disappointed in that. I thought as a commander-in-chief, if there were credible reasons for you to probe how resources, taxpayer resources that were given to Nigerian institutions and entities have been spent, you should be able to do that. But having said that, I could understand that you have to make certain political decisions at a point in time. But let's focus on going forward. We need a military that is going to be people-oriented. We don't have that yet in Nigeria. Across the level of our armed forces, we need to reorientate our armed forces. The Nigerian armed forces see themselves as they are still anti-civilians. No, you are supposed to be working for civilians in other clients, for goodness sake. You do not threaten the same people who are paying yourself.
Prof, well, it's going to be difficult to keep all of our security challenges insulated at home, particularly in the face of things happening in our neighborhoods, The Sahel has always been big in the news, and you have commented quite a number of times on that. The crisis in West Africa is also something, you know, of significance. But before I go there, let's look at the source of the document. What is your take? I checked out the institution that is working on it, and I found that it's an institution based in Australia.
Australia.
Now, it has offices in other parts of the world and one country office in Africa. One, and that's in Kenya. So, in terms of credibility and believability of that report from the source that it is coming, is this something that we need to consider, or it's something we can just take and say, okay, it's credible enough?
Well, let me put it this way. If the report had come out and said that Nigeria is the best country today on the planet in terms of fighting against terrorism, are we going to be asking for the source at all? No, we are going to celebrate it.
Well, Prof, I'm a journalist. I'm a journalist. I will still probe the source, because for the life of me, they could be deceiving me if it's too good.
I'm going there. We are going to support it. We are going to jump up. What I'm saying is that, look, the report came from the Institute for Economic Peace. That's based in Australia. Now, I am not so bothered about where it is located. At the end of the day, UN is sitting in New York. As a regional office in Africa here, you know, environment in Kenya, as the second office in Geneva. Switzerland is not even a member of UN. It's a neutral country. But you know what? Does most things that the United Nations want to be done. Whereas a country like the US, where it is seated, doesn't do most of those things at the end of the day. So let us stop burdening ourselves with the messenger and focus on the message.
Okay.
Having said that,
well, just a second. Let me ask the question. Let me ask the same question from Mr. Olorundamilola. Just a second. Just a second, Prof. I will come back to you on that. I just wanted to take Dr. Olorundamilola's comment on that as well. Does the source of the document, does it matter?
To me,
because it's not the only one. We consider the corruption index and a number of others like that.
Yes, some of these things are measured by global best practices. Okay. So you don't really bother so much about the source, but what is the report saying? What can you do?
Okay.
Because that is what should be important.
So to you, that report is credible?
It's credible. It's a credible report.
Okay.
To me.
In fighting terrorism and in looking at our safety in Nigeria, we have noticed that there have been, I don't even know how to describe it. Maybe I'll just say competition between the security agencies. We have seen policemen fighting soldiers. We have seen, you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
So how can we engender more cooperation between these agencies, bearing in mind that their goal, their one goal, is the same?
Yeah.
To keep Nigeria and Nigerians safe.
You know, if I just take you back to what happened 9/11, you know, that 9/11, the reason why 9/11 happened in the U.S. was interagency rivalry. So, and the American learned the hard way. So there must be interagency collaboration. And I think Nigerian security agencies have learned from that. You have to work together. And I want to say something about what the professor said about, you know, Nigerians also use soldiers to settle disputes. When they have land dispute, they go and hire soldiers against themselves. So
why should soldiers allow themselves to be hired?
Why should Nigerian civilians hire soldiers to settle dispute that is meant for, that should not be work of? That's why we said, see, this is a whole people approach. All of us have to come to that consciousness that soldiers are not meant to settle internal dispute. Money lenders and all kinds of things. Because I have a brother who is a military officer, I will go and use him to threaten the other person. And, you know, and when it comes, you now blame the military. No. So all of us have to get that consciousness to know that our military, we have to build trust in our military. I serve in the military.
But you didn't answer Alero's question. Why should the military themselves allow themselves to be used to settle disputes?
Well, you know, I don't want to say because
it's a matter of cash.
Yes, you know the question. You know the answer.
Matter of cash.
You know the answer. So Nigerians, we must build trust in our military. It's the Nigerians that will build trust in the military, not the military themselves. Because if the civil society and the media will not do that, the military themselves cannot do much to build trust. We have to build trust in our military. They belong to us.
Okay, so now there's an issue that Alero also raised the other time, and I think you also went there earlier, about the communities.
Yes.
When we talk about keeping Nigeria safe, we're talking about protecting the territorial integrity of the country. But there are those who would point out the fact that they will point out the porosity of the borders. They will point out the vulnerability of the communities.
Yes.
Some of our communities are not walled, they are not fenced, they're not wired. It's just people.
Yes.
One step and you're in another country.
Yeah.
I even heard that there is a part of our country that this side is Nigeria, the other side is another country.
Yes.
So how do we, from that angle, insulate the country? So we are bordered around, right, by a number of countries. At least 3 or 4 countries border us. So in what ways should we be talking to our communities to protect Nigeria, to help them to protect themselves from imported insurgencies?
Okay, let's even start from the internal communities that we have in Nigeria. Like, I come from a border town between Ondo State and Kogi State. And for a long time, our farmers couldn't go to farm again because of these invaders who settled and they will kill them and they will destroy their crops and all of that. But what we did was, because we have some of us who serve in the military, we came together and with the help of Amotekun, we were able to make sure that we procure arms. And the community were the one employing the Amotekuns to protect the community.
So they know themselves?
Yes. And so they went after the invaders. So, and the same thing can be applied. Because, you know, those countries bordering us, you know, some of this problem is caused by lack of good relationship with neighbors, neighboring countries. It's part of the... So, because we were not winning that war in the Borno axis until we have a joint task force between Nigeria and Chad and Mali, you know, because it's not something, because when they commit crime in Nigeria, they run to the other country. So, but when you encourage this community, inter-country, you know, collaboration, you have, so they can't run to the other country, they can't run from that country, commit crime in Nigeria. So this is the way this fight can.
I'm actually concerned about the people in the communities who are vulnerable and who have no idea what this whole terrorism agenda is. They just want to live peaceably. Yes. And I'm already married to her child, and she's married to me and all of that, and then you're saying that we have become enemies simply because. You know, so it's that kind of conversations that I'm looking at. Is there a way that governments at any level, federal, state, or local, can bring the people? Let me take that to you, Prof. Is there any way we can bring the people in on that conversation so that the people themselves don't feel left to themselves, that they actually feel that they are part, not just of the problem, but of the solution? Would you kindly unmute, Prof? Okay, it's better. We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was saying that that's a very important thing to request. There is no doubt that there is need for a greater participation from the community, Nigerian community at large, in terms of securing the country. Security is everybody's business, as we say in the popular parlance. But you see, somebody has to take leadership for that. You began your assessment by talking about how porous our borders are in Nigeria. Look, in Yoruba land we say, Amukun, one rewo, oni isalenikewu. Amukun is somebody who is crooked, who is carrying a load on his head. And it's always crooked, like, you know, and you say, oh, you know, Amukumbo, you are crooked. He said, well, why are you looking at what I'm carrying on? Look at my foundation. I've been crooked from day one. Those who are tasked with securing Nigerian borders, actually, don't forget, they are custom and excise people. They're custom people. Nigeria is one of the, if not the only one, I don't want to make a large claim, it's one of the few countries in the world where you have custom more bothered about collecting levies and taxes and revenues for government. That is not the job of a custom officer. The job of a custom officer is to police your borders, basically. But we created a custom, for whatever reason in this world, we then saddled the custom with collecting revenue. So they completely abdicated almost their roles as policing the borders for collecting, because it's much easier to make money through collecting revenues. It's not the job of a custom. So you cannot begin to talk about engaging the community when the primary agency that you've delegated the responsibility to police, you know, our borders is not doing that job. So we have to start with the custom. You know, for a long time, we have been pushing for the government to take away revenue collection. If you go to the United Kingdom, you have HM revenue separate from the custom. In most countries, they are separate. We've been pushing that from the background, actually, through some initiatives to make government take away that revenue from custom so they can focus on their primary job. And thankfully, the current government has taken that step. Kudos to them for that. It's a very significant distance. So we can then begin to have a more professional custom, you know, that will focus on border protection. Having said that, now, go forward. How do we engage our communities? Yes, somebody should take the lead. Now, we have almost integrated, if not totally integrated, our traditional rulers into the architecture of governance in Nigeria. They are paid salaries by the state today. They are paid either by state, but they are now in the mainstream. Our traditional rulers also should step up in bringing they are the last bastion in the community governance. They should be able to bring people together, leverage their authorities as traditional rulers on behalf of the government, of course, and be able to bring people closer to the government. If you are waiting for the federal government or state government to begin to, you know, create that particular space, it won't work. We have seen on the the Supreme Court gave that judgment last year. We saw clearly how difficult it was for states to actually deal with local governments. Everything came down to jack. Everything came down to finances. Well, at the end of the day, that is the first and the last thing you want about governance in Nigeria. It's about money, money, money. So if you want to leave the job of bringing the people closer in the discourse, and that discourse should happen in the national discourse of how people can get more, how people can get more involved in the fight against terrorism, in making this country, you must leverage traditional institutions, faith-based institutions. Look, Nigerians would rather listen to their pastors than to listen to the government. Nigerians would rather listen to their imams than to listen to some governor, what governors are telling them. I can tell you for free today, if somebody like Pastor Adeboye in his church stand up and tell Christian community in Nigeria that, look, we want you to be able to collaborate with this and that to bring more. They are likely to listen to that man more than they will listen to your governor. It's a fact. That is who we are as a country. That is who we have become as a country. If that is what we have, if that is the weapon we have, let's work with it. There's nothing wrong in that. If we have credible men of God and women of God, credible traditional rulers who can do the job, let's go for them. And if governors who have been paid much more now because of the, you know, subsidy and this and that, if they can wake up and realize that they owe this duty to their people, so be it. But for now, there's nothing to give any joy in that. All we hear is the trillions. The federal.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Well, let me bring this question to you, Doctor. We're talking about keeping Nigeria safe. Yes. A lot of talk we have heard and we have spoken about state policing. If that were brought into the equation, would Nigerians feel safer?
Nigeria would feel safer with, what do you call it now?
State police.
State police.
Yes. So,
yes.
But why are the states all dragging their feet? Many of them say that they're in agreement, yes. They want state police, but no state is doing anything concrete about it.
State police is already existing in one form or the other. Like I just referenced my own state, Ondo State, where we have Amotekun by our former governor, our late governor. And that has helped the communities. You remember that there was this terrorist attack in Owo, where the governor even actually came from, where the Catholic Church was going, they went there and they killed a lot of people, worshippers, and so that helped to kind of, you know, trigger that to say, look, we must deepen the job of Amatekun in the state. And it was with Amatekun, even in my own community, our farmers couldn't go to the farm again because we're a border community between Ondo State and Kogi State. But it was with the help of Amatekun. Bicycle were, motorcycle were procured for them, and guns were, and they were able to go to the farms to secure farmers when they go to the farm. And because these invaders saw that, no, we've taken this step, they left. They left the community alone. So I think State Police, but the former leadership of said they don't believe in state policing. The president did say that, President Muhammad Buhari. And so because of that body language, but now that we have a new leadership, we expect that state policing should be, because people will be able to trust. Imagine if you have someone who is from your community, who is also the DPO. So people will trust them with more information, because intelligence is about information sharing. You go to them and tell them a new person has just arrived in the community, we don't know who is he. So that is the way it is done.
Prof, what are your thoughts on state policing? Would it help our situation?
Absolutely. I support it 100%. Look, let me tell you something, Alero. I was one of the people brought together under Dawn Commission Development Agenda for Western Nigeria to actually establish Amatekun a few years ago. That was at Ibadan when the governors met and had that summit. We were somewhere finalizing what Amatekun should be, doing the concept work and this and that, when the governors were doing their own political thing. So I was central to forming the formation of Amatekun. That was because we had the issue with herdsmen, then the herdsmen and farmer crisis and this and that. And we thought there was a need at that point in time for what we used to have in those days, like a guards in the forest guard, that we should have, some lightly armed civilian policing, so to say, that would go into the forest and be able to police our farmers and stuff like that, and create a bit of security at a much more local level than what the state could provide. So I've always been a supporter of policing. And look, let's stop demonizing ourselves. Because those who are against it will say, oh, in Nigeria, if you use it in Nigeria, they're going to use it to humiliate, to hunt, to hunt down the political opponents and this. We always find exception for what we don't want to do in Nigeria. Before you propose anything in Nigeria, somebody's already thinking about exception, why it will not work. Nigeria is not the rarest country in the world, for goodness sake. In some countries, they have policing in universities. Go to America, some Indiana police, we have police in universities. We are talking about states here. I don't think there's any state in Nigeria today that will be less than 1 or 2 million people. There are countries in the world that are over 1 million people. Nauru, 500 and something thousand. There are many countries that are under 1 million. So you have states in Nigeria that, no, I don't think a single state in Nigeria is less than 2 million or 3 million today. So if you have countries of 500,000 people, 1 million people all over the world, and there are nothing less than 20 countries that I know that are less than 1 million people in the world. And there are countries, they have embassies, they have airports, they have police, they have army. So why can't you have a state of 2 million having a police, for goodness sake? There's nothing wrong with that. What we need to do is to make sure that we build mechanisms in that system to make sure that they will not be used for what they should not be used for. It's as simple as ABC. So there is nothing wrong in that. And it's high time we go.
Talking about this whole state police thing only raises more questions than answers. But I'll be honest with you, Dr. Olorundaminola. My own issue is at the lowest levels. There are those who have said that, and security operatives such as yourself, security agencies or consultants such as yourself, have said that the issues of insecurity are a lot more non-kinetic than we look at. Poverty, yes, joblessness, unemployment, hunger, corruption, and all those things. And someone who couldn't afford a pair of shoes gets to become a counselor, and within the shortest possible time has built a house. So one is wondering, is there a way we can approach these insecurity issues, these safety issues, from those non-kinetic ways, particularly deploying our political infrastructure and apparatus?
As we are talking about preventive measures.
Yes.
Yes. I think that, it should come from government. I think there was a time in the National Assembly we were talking about something like that, that if you are living beyond your means, there should be a way of, even not just political appointees, even civil servants. Because you find out that even in Nigeria, researches have shown that civil servants are even more corrupt than the politicians. You will find out that some of them who have their children schooling abroad and all of that, they are top civil servants, because the politicians are not the one writing the checks. They are not the one preparing the budgets. They are not the one. They are not the real accounting officers. Are the civil servants, top civil servants, and they know how to hide some of these things. And they are the one who teaches our politicians how to do this, how to do that. That once we know that people are living above their means, then we should not wait till all the money has been stolen. There should be a system in place that makes you not to live above your means.
Prof, your take?
Well, all I can say is I wish you best of luck in that, Ayo. You are going to open a Pandora's box. You know, it's a whirlwind. It should be done. It's something that should be done. It's something that we need to embrace as a nation. If you look at Sena climbs, if you are riding a bicycle yesterday and your neighbor knew you were riding a bicycle yesterday, and you came back today from work and you came with a BMW, and you tell your neighbor, oh, I just bought it. He will ask you, why? Where did you get it? Oh, I just bought it. Oh, fantastic. We'll celebrate with you. The next thing is calling police to check you out. That it's always known you to ride a bike, but now you are riding a BMW overnight. That is a system where there's transparency. That's a system where there's conscionability. But we run a system that if you were riding a bike yesterday or you had no penny in your account yesterday, and the very following day you came back with a G-Wagon and 100 million naira in your account, the first person that will call you is your pastor to remind you have to come and pay your tithe. You know,
yeah, but you know, Prof, the question I'm asking really is interventions that we have, just a second, interventions that we have, right, that will deal with the poverty problem, deal with the unemployment problem, and deal with the corruption problem, just as you are highlighting. Because some people have also indicated that the root of corruption itself is poverty. I don't want to be poor again. So I put my money on the till until I leave the till, and then I can live off the things that I took away from the till. So is there a way, do you think we're doing enough to eradicate or reduce poverty and the vulnerabilities to poverty through our political structures?
No, straight away, we are not doing anything near enough at all. Look, we are in a country in which the disparity between the rich and the poor is criminal. It's not just wide in Nigeria, it's criminal. We are not, I mean, there is no social safety, no safety net for the downtrodden Nigerians. You know, in other climes, you are out of school, you have no jobs, government pays you a certain amount of money, give an accommodation, pays some amount of money to be able to look after your body and soul. Once you can get food, once you have an accommodation, no matter how flimsy the accommodation is, and more often than not, there's like a single bunk, but you have a room to use, it's your room. Government pays for it. You have a room, you have a single bunk, and they give you something like maybe 50 pounds or 70 pounds a week to be able to buy your basic needs, food and whatsoever. If you want to smoke, they take care of those basic things. You are no longer worried about food and accommodation. That is your poverty reduced at least by 50%. You can then begin to think, and the same government will encourage you, look, we're giving you this, you have to go out and look for a job. They create job centers. There are no job centers in Nigeria. Government doesn't care whether you're out of the school and you have money or you don't have. Today, you have graduates. You have master's degree holders who don't have anywhere to turn to. You have doctors who have nowhere to turn to. So we are not doing anything near enough in the country at all. And we live in a country in which you have, people earning 29, 30 million naira a month. And when a government is struggling to pay 70,000 naira a month to the largest amount of Nigerians, you're talking about 85 or 90%.
Essentially, Prof, you're saying that the political office holders need to buckle up.
Completely so.
Okay, all right.
Prof, I need to take your last word on this. Your parting shot. One sentence, please, Prof.
My parting shot today is going to be to the Nigerian military. When next a report comes out, I will implore you to please take some time, read the report comprehensively. before you come out and make a comment. Don't perceive every single act of criticism as an attack on you. Criticism can only make you better, but don't make yourself look ridiculous and embarrassing by attacking things that are actually complimenting you. E.g., this particular report compliments you. Next time, take 1 or 2 minutes, read and digest before you come out and speak to the public.
Okay. Doctor, your last word.
Let's continue to build trust in our military. They have the ability to keep us safe.
Of course, you would say that, being a former military officer yourself. Dr. Felix Olorundamilola, security and intelligence expert, who was with us in our studio in Lagos. And we were also joined by Professor Ademola Abbas, Professor of International Law and Global Security, who joined us via Zoom. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
Sunrise will return in just a moment. Do stay with us.